You are listening to the Curator Podcast, Season 2, Episode 7. An interview with Stephen Gillies from Atlas Empire and Dialects. Stephen, it's about time. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am okay. Yeah. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to finally do this, man.
I'm glad to have you here.
So, have you had the podcast before?
I have. Yeah, I've listened to a few of the ones you've done. Yeah.
Cool. Do you know how I'm going to start?
How are you going to start?
Where did it all begin, man?
Where did it all begin?
How did you get into this state?
Music in general, bands and all that nonsense.
Aye.
It started quite a long time ago. Since I was about probably 13, 14 years old, I really wanted to be a singer in a band, and did that with a few kind of crappy teenage bands, as I think we all do, and then kind of started getting a bit better, and I didn't start playing guitar till I was about 16 properly, so a bit of a late starter with it, and then that just kind of evolved into doing bands that weren't quite as shit, I think, and then here we are, some 16 years later, shall we say, and I'm still doing it somehow.
One of the things we spoke about just before we started was how you're still dicking about in bands at this age.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When you think about that, do you think it's time well spent?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people. I'm now in my early 30s, and I know a lot of other people in my age bracket, maybe a year or two older, maybe a year or two younger in some cases, have kind of lost their way with it and kind of thought, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. And I guess what it is varies person to person. I don't really regret anything I've done in music, I guess, because it's either all been something that I'm still proud of or something that's got me to something I've been proud of. But I do think it's time well spent. I think with anything, you need to kind of put your time in. Some bands get lucky and, you know, from a young age get signed to a label or whatever when that was still a thing that really happened, and some of us don't. But I guess the main thing and the main reason, you know, much like yourself, that you either keep doing it or keep coming back to it is because you enjoy it and you love it. And avoiding sounding too cliched, I genuinely don't know what I'd do if I wasn't playing in a band, or bands in my case. I play in a couple just now, writing songs, playing guitar, collaborating with other musicians. I would be kind of lost without it. It's kind of always what I've been about, and it took me until I was maybe about 20 maybe going on 21 when my band at the time did our first actual tour, and I've kind of never looked back since then. So yeah, it's time well spent for me, definitely.
What was it about that first tour?
It was pretty wicked. We did our first ever tour with Devil Sold His Soul, and it was their first ever tour, and a band called Second Smile. Second Smile were on BSM, Big Scary Monsters, and now one of their guitar players and their singer Ross now plays in Lonely the Brave years later, so he's doing really well. And obviously Devil have kind of always been going and kind of gone from strength to strength and changed lineups, so I think for that to be our first tour, obviously we'd done some shows in other parts of Scotland. Initially the band were based down in Greenock and Inverclyde, and we kind of migrated to Glasgow, but I think that'd been our first actual tour, first English shows, you know, out with Central Scotland. Was a pretty awesome way to start, because most of the shows were pretty packed. It was a kind of Rock Sound sponsored tour as well, so I had a lot of press behind it. So going from just doing local shows in a small town, then kind of local shows, sort of local band showcase gigs in Glasgow, there was no real stepping stone. It was just this tour, which was awesome, yeah. And still friends with a lot of the guys in those bands and keep in touch with them, like Johnny Renshaw, who plays guitar in Devil. He mixed and mastered the last Atlas EP, so we've always stayed in touch, you know, myself and Ross. The other guys from Second Smile, formerly Second Smile as well, myself and Ross stay in touch like regularly. So, and that was 2005, a long time ago.
So I mean, can you tell us about the feelings you had when you first did that?
Just, I don't know, like growing up in a small town, or a sort of triumvirate of towns on the west coast of Scotland, there was a weird sort of local music for local people attitude. And I always remember the band that became the Ocean Fracture. It was a band called Emberfall, kind of emo post-hardcore band, and we changed line-up and sort of changed sound. But I always remember, like, we didn't think there was anything wrong with wanting to play shows in Glasgow or play a show in Paisley or play a show in Edinburgh potentially. But a lot of the other bands in Gourock and Greenock, which is population-wise reasonably large, but it's a small town or trio of towns, in Inverclyde, they had this weird attitude like, oh, you guys think you're too big for Greenock, and people actually said that about us, or Emberfall as it was at the time, think you're too big for Greenock. I remember me and the other guys in the band just being like, is that, are they serious? Like, yeah, we would like to play other places. So I guess within a couple of years of kind of dealing with that really close-minded, quite elitist attitude for a small town music scene, it was just kind of validating to us that we were all, I think myself and our drummer were like 20, 21, our other guitar player was like 18, 19, which is a couple of years below us, to be playing, and we were playing, you know, places like Lancaster, and we would play, you know, play the show in London and whatever else, but it was cool to just be playing away from Scotland, you know, and playing places even though some of them were small towns we'd never been. So it kind of made us feel like we were doing something right as well, you know, so kind of validating and just exciting to be going and doing other things outside our comfort zone with music, I guess.
One thing that nobody's really spoken about in the podcast, and it kind of occurs to me now, is like, given that you've been at it for so long, and we've just kind of spoken a little bit about the first time you went on a tour.
Yeah.
Like, is it? How would you say? Would you say that you learn quite a lot about yourself from doing that?
Just touring in general. Yeah. I mean, I think it's. I guess I've seen over the years in different bands, I've kind of felt I took to it quite naturally, and I never really found it a strain or a struggle. And I guess it's not as if I was going away for 3 months at a time, so maybe if I was doing that it'd be a different story, or if I'd done that when I was younger. But yeah, I just think you kind of see from an early stage, even with tours like that, which people in the band are kind of not cut out for it, but kind of like who's enjoying it and who's maybe getting a bit homesick, or, you know, whose bus hygiene isn't the best, and you need to shower after a show. You must shower after being on stage, rule. Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I said, with doing that, like, albeit it was 11 years ago in September, I remember that, and it's been it was sporadic for a few years because that band at the time didn't really tour that much. Not as much as I wanted us to, and when we did, it was quite short runs. But I guess since probably 2013, since the first couple of out with kind of Glasgow tours of the Atlas Empire, like we toured with Axes of the end of 2013, and that was the longest time I'd been away on the tour before. That was like 12 days, and kind of built on that since with going into Europe and stuff. So yeah, I think you do learn a lot about yourself, and I guess about how much that half hour or maybe sometimes 40 minutes you're on stage, everything the rest of the day is that, as all bands will tell you, is just waiting and, you know, travelling and being stuck in traffic and smelling other people's farts and stuff. But it's all part of it for me. Like, I enjoy, like, when I go on tour, like, my friend Graham Wright, who used to sing in a band called Zachariah, he's been in a bunch of bands, and ironically my first ever tour was when Graham and I first met. His band at the time, Nothing From Nowhere, were the opening band at King Tut's in the Glasgow show of that first tour with Devil. So we've known each other a long time, and Graham and I are kind of the same. Like, he drives, but he mucks in with the load ends and does your merch for you and kind of effectively TMs pretty much. 9 times out of 10, if there's like, oh, we've got a place to stay and there's maybe only room for like X number of people, we're like, we'll sleep in the van, because it's just being on tour. Like, I think I enjoy kind of everything about it, apart from like getting shows cancelled or, you know, that kind of crap. But everything else, even just the roughing it in a van and maybe not going to shower every day, it's just part of it, man. It just feels like you're touring. I don't know, I think from reading Kerrang and Rocksound and stuff when I was younger, and reading about the bands I sort of idolised, and you know, it was kind of where I wanted to get to, they all slummed it at some point, really, you know, in any genre. Most bands paid their dues, and it kind of feels like that. That's just part of it.
You talked a little bit about Atlas Empire, so we should probably just dive right into that, because it's the most pertinent thing, apart from Dialects as well, both the most pertinent thing.
Yeah.
Jamie's spoken a little bit about how it started. How did it start from your perspective? How did that begin?
Well, okay, so I met Jamie in 2008, 2008 or the start of 2009 through a mutual friend of ours, a guy called Chris Grant. And the first band we played in together, Jamie and I played in 2 bands together before Atlas Empire started. So we played in a band called Cavalcades. I understand there's another one from Aberdeen, I think, but this was a Glasgow-based Cavalcades. Jamie played guitar and did a bit of singing. Chris was the main singer, actually played bass, and Paul MacArthur, who used to play guitar in the Ocean Fracture, he actually played drums in that band. So it was a bit of a mishmash of musicians, but it was cool. We did that, and then Jamie and I were also involved in another band after that for a while. We never quite got to the gigging stage with that band, and that was much more sort of poppy, kind of indie stuff. So I'd kind of, prior to doing that project, I'd kind of said to Jamie, we should do something together, because Jamie, I'd kind of heard him first at open mic nights, Block open mic night to be specific, doing, his own kind of version of, even like Paramore songs, but stuff like Death Cab for Cutie and Arcade Fire, Radiohead, Frightened Rabbit, some Bon Iver, loads of stuff, some Damien Jurado. So he had that kind of folky thing going on. But then I'd heard some of his electronic music, and at that point Jamie was doing a project called Oh You Dancer, which was effectively Jamie wearing a luchador mask, usually no t-shirt, and playing like really funky, glitchy electro on a piece of shit old laptop. So I was like, this guy can do a lot of stuff. So I was quite interested in doing a project that involved more electronics and kind of ambient sort of stuff. So I tried to convince Jamie to do something, and he wasn't that keen at first. Okay, cool, have another crack at this guy. So then we'd done that other band, and then Jamie and I both left that at the same time, kind of for the same reasons. And I sort of said to him, like, man, I've got a bunch of songs that I've been writing since Ocean Fracture ended. You've got some stuff as well. Let's just get together. Let's work on some music. And there was no sort of pretense of this band had to sound a certain way, or this band had to dress a certain way, or have a certain haircut, which was very prevalent in the project we'd just done. It was very, very commercially aimed. It was kind of marketed at a certain thing from day one. Not by ourselves, but we'd kind of bought into that to a certain degree for some reason, and then we kind of realised that wasn't what it was about at all, and never had been. And pretty much I met up with Jamie in Kelvin Grove Park on the 1st of May 2011. You'll get this, I remember dates, it's weird. I'd phoned him and he came down and met me, and we both effectively resigned from said previous band simultaneously. And then I think like a week later I went up to Jamie's and said, here's some stuff I've got, and stuff came together really quickly. Like, we wrote 6 songs, rehearsed them with Dave Stephen, who was our bass player. Dave left recently. He was in the band pretty much since day one. And Paul, again, who played drums in Cavalcades and had been the guitar player in Ocean Fracture, agreed to help us out on drums until we got a permanent guy. We'd actually tried out Ross Jenkins, who went on to play drums in United Fruit, but he just joined Fruit, so Paul jumped in, and then 6 weeks later we played our first show. So there was no kind of messing about. It didn't feel rushed for some reason. See, retrospectively, I think that's nuts. It was literally 6 weeks after Jamie and I sort of sat down, we played a show, or 6 weeks after we sat down with Dave, I guess, so it was probably about two months in total. But yeah, that's kind of how it came together, a bit of persuasion on my end of things, and just chipped away at Jamie till he said yes, pretty much. Still doing it, still chipping.
I mean, you guys have done quite a lot in that time. I mean, to think that was only like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, just over 5 years ago. Yeah, we have, like with anything, I'm pleased with what we've done. I feel we could have done more. I feel there's points where the band's been pretty complacent. Sometimes it was something I was aware of at the time, but didn't really feel I was able to influence it because of people's circumstances. And sometimes it was kind of retrospectively, I'd look and go, we could have really done more. But yeah, we've done quite a lot. As I said, we did a kind of first bunch of shows in Glasgow, and we played with some really cool bands. In the early days we supported Winter Sleep, bands from Canada, Saves the Day and Oh Brother being like one of my favourite bands like the last sort of 5-6 years. We were involved in King Tut's Summer Nights and things like that. So we did Go North as well, up in Inverness before it was Expo North. So we had some cool stuff, and then we kind of just looked at touring further afield. But yeah, we've released a few EPs, one with your help, and two without. And we've been working on this debut album. We've not quite reached Glassjaw or Guns N' Roses ridiculousness with the album, but yeah, we've basically been working on getting a full-length album since, I'd probably say properly, since 2013, and then we started again kinda in 2014, and we're starting again in January. So yeah, we've done a fair bit, man. Going to Europe last year was pretty awesome. That was an interesting tour. There was a lot of potentially disastrous things happened, and we managed to pull through. But yeah, it's weird. It feels kind of like longer than 5 years as well. But at the same time, when it got to the point where I realised it was the kind of 5-year birthday of the band, if you like, I was like, oh, it's been 5 years. It kind of feels like longer than that, but not in a, for me anyway, not in a really arduous, like, fuck, this has been 5 years of my life. But it's certainly been interesting.
The thing that interests me most about it, and one of the things that I've kind of picked up just sitting here talking to you, is you strike me as being a really driven person. Yeah. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
I think that's probably, it's an interesting one, because that's kind of always how I've been about things I'm passionate about since I was a kid. Like, I guess the way I was brought up was to do the things you care about 100%. But that's been a problem for so many other people I've been in bands with over the years. And I guess when I was younger, I was probably a bit more brash and at points maybe quite reactionary, and this is weird, like, I never really feel that I lost my shit with anybody that didn't deserve it, and it didn't happen very often. But there's a lot of dudes that used to play in bands with me that don't speak to me anymore and like slag me off on the internet like teenagers. So I don't know, it's weird. I think people remember things differently, but you know, I like to think that anything I've ever said or done with any band, I've been thinking about what I view to be the greater good, I guess. And it's just really simple. Like, it's a conversation I've had really recently with people like who still play in the bands I'm with, and obviously with Dave, who recently left Atlas Empire. I think he really felt he was letting the side down. Haven't been in the band, 2 weeks after me and Jamie started, so pretty much since day one. And I think what I said to him was just the same thing I've said to quite a few people, but Dave, it was far more amiable than other, breakups, as it were. Like, if you don't want to be doing this, don't do it. None of us are getting paid to do this. This is costing us a shit ton of money. If you've got other life priorities, if your heart's not in it the way it used to be, whatever it is, just be open about it. Just be open. And I think that's something that has maybe got me into trouble, because that would imply that it's an issue. But I think the reason there's people, certainly in the Glasgow music scene, probably the Greenock scene, if that's even still a thing, that would go, that guy's a dick, is because I'll just be honest about how I feel. It's not that I think there's anything wrong with being a musician or being a band that wants to do it for fun and just have a jam with your mates and that's fine. That's not where I'm at, so I would be open about the fact that I want to do more than that with the bands I play in and the projects I'm involved in, and I'd ask the individuals that felt differently to be honest about it. And I think a lot of the time you're kind of made out to be a bit of a monster or a bit of a tyrant. Pretty open book, like, this is what I want to do, this is kind of what I've been working towards for half my life, so I don't really see what's wrong with that, man.
See, the reason I ask is because I recognise the similar drive in myself.
Yeah.
And it fucking drives me personally insane. Like, I think a lot of people that I know that I have been and am in bands with might think I'm quite controlling as well, and I would really rather somebody else did it. I really don't like doing it myself.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is, like, where does it come from in you?
I guess it must be from a childhood thing. It must be getting, the way I was brought up to apply myself to kind of the things I care about. Like, I didn't do nearly as well as I should have in school in terms of, qualifications and stuff, because I didn't care. It got to a certain point and I knew what I wanted to do, and there's been a few things in my life. Like, I did karate when I was younger. I did Shotokan karate from about 3 or 4 weeks before my 7th birthday up until I was about probably 17 or 18. Did that to a national championship level and was a black belt when I was 10 and stuff, and so I was super focused on that when I was younger. And in tandem with that, I was really, really into illustration and artwork. I used to be obsessed with Marvel comics and Image, and a little bit of DC, but mostly kind of Marvel and Image, so X-Men and Wildcats and stuff, Spawn and all that kind of stuff. So I drew, and I really wanted to do that, and I just think I've kind of always been, ever since I was sort of had conscious thought, I've always kind of believed I should do the things I care about to the best of my ability. I think it just comes from that, I guess, as well with the music thing. Like, it frustrates me when bands and musicians and whatever like don't push themselves, especially good bands and musicians. And I know people want different things from it, I get that, but if you say you're kind of similar, you must have found yourself frustrated. Like, they could do so much more than they're doing. Like, if you see a band playing and they're just awesome, or like there's one member or two members who are shit hot, and you're like, man, that guy or that girl could go somewhere, they could fucking do something. And then you meet them a couple of years later, and I guess I said as well, like, being, you know, having a 3 at the start of my age now rather than a 2, it's a bit kind of like, aye, but are you still going to keep fucking around in bands, or are you going to get a job? I'm like, well, yeah, I can get jobs, but jobs are just jobs. That's literally an income to stop me being homeless, but it's not this thing. This thing's something else. And it sounds cheesy and it sounds lame when you're like, that's what I was put here to do, but like, I just don't feel, even though I was really into martial arts when I was younger, I was really into the illustrative side of, you know, physical art, I guess. It wasn't really until I got into like alternative music, because I'd always heard music growing up. Like, my mum was always playing quite a varied mix of stuff. I totally grew up on The Clash, The Police and Sting solo stuff, but then stuff like Michael Jackson and stuff like Seal, so I always had a kind of wide range of like R&B and pop through to kind of post-punk and stuff growing up. And then, as like any kid in my age did, like, I'm sure I had a Robbie Williams album bought for me, and my first music that was bought for me was PJ and Duncan. Remember Ant and Dec's Pop Alter Egos, You Crazy Cats with the K's. But I came on from there, I had a Spice Girls album or some bullshit as well. I was like primary 7, and then I got into like alternative music, and again it was just, you remember yourself when you first get into, whether it was through punk or whatever, like, my first thing was, I'd heard like Guns N' Roses, I'd heard Metallica, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool. And then I heard, within the space of like a couple of weeks, I heard Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Nirvana, Foo Fighters, and that's quite a wake up for like a 12-year-old kid to be like, oh wow, this is great. That led on to a whole host of other stuff, and then going down weirder, more, you know, heavier routes here in bands like Botch and Dillinger Escape Plan via At the Drive-In and Glassjaw and Thursday and all that kind of stuff. Just became kind of obsessed with it. Yeah, so yeah, the drive thing, I need to kind of attribute that to my mum, like my uncle and my grandpa growing up, I guess. I don't remember there being any standout thing that made me think I always need to, you know, be the best at what I am. I just don't see the point in doing things half-assed if I care about them. Am I restless? I am sometimes, yeah. I'm okay, I'm pretty steady just now, despite the caffeinated beverage. I guess I just don't believe in reincarnation. I don't believe in a life after death. I believe I've got one life to do stuff with, so I don't really want to mess around and waste time. Like, I don't see the point. And yeah, I think I've always subscribed to thinking with my heart and not my head. Again, as maybe cliched as that sound, it's the way I've lived my life. So yeah, I could have gone to uni and got a career and, you know, done band as a hobby. And I know guys who've done that and they're totally happy and they've got a really good job doing graphic design or doing accountancy or doing whatever, and, you know, they can afford, like, because they've got the great salary, they can afford to buy a custom shop Strat, or they can afford to buy a DW kit and, you know, that kind of stuff, but they're kind of a slave to the wage as well, whereas I would rather slum it, and comparatively slum it. Obviously I'm not exactly destitute, but again, that's thanks to my girlfriend's generosity and my friends and stuff. But yeah, there's definitely been sacrifice financially and probably mentally as well to keep doing bands for as long as I have, especially doing 2 fucking touring bands for the last couple of years. That's been tough.
I was going to ask, I mean, you say the way you said it there, as if it's not a hobby. Is it not a hobby to you then?
I don't know, like, I think calling it a hobby, for me, trivialises it a little bit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I guess it's just perspective, isn't it? Like, because speaking to Connor recently, Connor who plays guitar in Dialects, who you've spoken to before, he spoke about how he's got a lot of free time at the moment and stuff, blah blah blah, and he's like, I should probably get another hobby soon. And I didn't say anything to him because this was through Messenger, but him saying it was a hobby kind of pissed me off a little bit. I'm sort of like, it's a fucking hobby. But yeah, the thing is, it is, I mean, I guess, what's the definition of a hobby? Hobby's an interest. It's a thing that you do in your free time that you enjoy. But I don't think of it like that. And the weird thing is, see if people ask me, like, what do I do? Like, perfect example, taxi drivers. I wouldn't say, oh, I work in a call centre. I'd say, oh, I play in bands. I'm a guitarist and a singer in bands. That's just my instinctual reaction. It's not, like today, I was down visiting my mum and helping take 2 of her cats to the vet. And the taxi driver, just making random chat, I was sat in the front, was like, oh, you working or you uni? And I was like, no man, not been at the uni stage for a long time. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I play in bands, so, you know, I do work, but... And he was like, oh, no. So, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a hobby to me. Nah, it just kind of feels like it's what I do, and everything else to make money is just what I do to make money, I guess.
There's no right or wrong answer to that, is there, really?
Totally,
you know,
no. I think a lot of people would again laugh and be like, it is a hobby, you don't make money off it, you don't make your living off it, but I think that's a really linear way of thinking. I think if I called it a hobby, it would trivialise it, and it would underplay the importance of it to me.
I mean, things that are important to you, if it's a hobby or not a hobby, it doesn't really matter, because it's something you enjoy doing. I think that's the ultimate way of describing it, isn't it? It's like, this is something I love doing, and if I could do it, if I could make a living doing it, I'd be ace.
Yeah, wicked.
Hopefully you can one day.
I mean, maybe that's the thing, man, like, when you're 16, 17, you think you're going to be Deftones, and you think you're going to be whoever, like, you know, Linkin Park, or Blink-182, or Alkaline Trio. I mean, everybody thinks that's going to be me playing up there to 40,000 people, and you know, for some dudes it is, some guys, some girls get that. I haven't yet, that's fine. Am I chasing a 15-year-old's dream of rock stardom? No. Have I been at any point in the last probably decade or so? Probably not. I think since I was maybe 20-ish, I've had a fairly realistic expectation of what can be achieved within, I guess, alternative music. But I don't know, I think there's some people, again, in my age bracket, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, who are kind of really, really cynical and really bitter about things and don't feel you can achieve anything. Success is relative in anything, you know, so if I can keep a roof over my head, eat, feed my cat, ideally not get dumped again, and still keep playing in bands until I'm completely grey and far too fucking old to be doing it, that's fine. As I said, I don't think there'll ever be a point where I'll look back on my life and go, oh shit, I should have been an accountant, oh shit, I should have, like, whatever. There's plenty of time if I decide in another 5 years that it is going to be a hobby, like, as in a total pastime. Like, I'll play guitar and I'll write a song every once in a while, cool. If I'm still doing this in 15 years and still playing the same level of gigs, if I'm happy, I'm happy. But as you said, it's what you do, it's what you enjoy. I wouldn't be here, and I think it's mental that anybody does this for any length of time and almost resents it. It's complete. I wouldn't say it's. I can understand why people might.
But see behind the curtain, do you know what I mean? Once you
yeah, but
curtain,
like,
you kind of know. You kind of go, this is all racket, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, just don't do it then.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Stop, and don't be one of these dickheads that's like a keyboard fucking gangster. Like, you know, I hate people that, and I found this, you know, there's people in Glasgow who are guilty of this, certainly. You know, of being criticising people for trying, criticising people for like doing things, like, you know, cool, so I do a music video for my band. That doesn't make me a prick. I'm just doing a music video because I like, that's cool. I grew up watching Kerrang and Roxy and Scuzz, and like, you know, seeing bands do videos and, you know, so I want to do that for my band, and it's up to me how I spend my money, and it's up to my bandmates how they spend their money. So cool. Or like, you know, we do a promo shot, like, so what? And so many people, as you well know, get their nose out of joint with that kind of shit, and they're like, oh, they think they're this and they think they're that, and I'll check them out, and like typey keyboard gangster bollocks. And it's like, man, conserve your energy and do something, just focus on your own life. Like, these people have got, like, put it into something constructive. See, if you don't want to do that, you don't think that's how a band should conduct themselves, cool. I'm not like Ollie Sykes pissing in a 14-year-old's face. I shot a video, big deal. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's weird, but I think there's that total guilty parties, I should say, are guilty of, oh yeah, like criticising as if you're a tryhard just because you're not sat in your arse playing the odd gig. There's no right or wrong, that's what I'm saying. See, for the people that do want to just go to a practice room every once in a while and play the odd show, you know, in small venues, fine, that's absolutely fine, do your thing. Just, you know, leave me to do mine, pretty much. Like, or don't, like, just don't expect me to bother with you. It's weird.
Everybody's got their own definition of what like being a particular kind of being an unsigned or DIY band is, you know, and there's got infinite fucking permutations.
DIY is hilarious, right?
DIY band though.
What's that? We're a completely DIY band. The only time we've not been a DIY band was when we were involved with a lovely Glasgow record label called Curator Legacy. That's the only time we've not been 100% self-financed. Every band I've ever done has been a DIY band, and it doesn't matter whether it's a post-hardcore band, you know, a proggy, emo-y, indie rock band, a math rock band, whatever the hell, it doesn't make a difference. It's all been self-financed, it's all been self-funded. You know, every guitar, amplifier, pedal, lead, rehearsal space, we've rented, merch, tour, van, everything, music video, PR campaign, everything, flight to Canada, everything has been self-funded. Like, right up to the point where obviously one of my bands got some Creative Scotland funding for our album, but that was we applied for that and put the man hours into that. But it's really weird, like, and there's certain DIY scenes that exist where to be a DIY band means you have to play a certain style of music, and it's like, well, okay, no, take the dictionary definition of DIY, it just means you're doing stuff off your own back, and you're, and a lot of times, designing your own posters, designing your own artwork, you know, if that's the case. Yeah, we've had other people design artwork for a couple of our EPs that we've paid, and they've been friends, and it's been like, I'll do your EP cover for 50 quid, I'll do it for 100 quid. That 50 or 100 quid has come out the pockets of the individuals in the band at the time. It's really weird. But as I said, there's numerous permutations, and there's just a strange, I find with certain people, there's a strange attitude to, and that ties into what I was saying about, you know, keyboard gangster bitchiness about, oh, they did a video, or, oh, did you see they're in this magazine, and, you know, backhanded sly comments. And it's like, man, just do something constructive with your time. Surely you've got something better to do than look at what my band's doing on the internet and troll. Like, just grow up, man. It's really weird, but it's funny. Like, obviously there's times where you see something and you'll get a little bit irate about it, but generally now it's just, yeah, it's really weird. I think if you're a DIY band, great, regardless of your genre. And if you're not a DIY band, great, because you're being, you know, given money or funded to do something. You can still work hard even if you're not paying for your own stuff, you know. I'd love to have a record label just give me money to do stuff, that'd be great. That would be nice, wouldn't it? You know, but as would most of these people who either are or were musicians, if they were put in a situation where they wouldn't have to compromise their art, compromise their music, compromise their integrity, but a label would be like, we love what you do, so we're going to give you this advance and we're going to give you these royalties, and they would go, oh shit, I don't need to work a crap job and be a bitter dick anymore. I can just write my insert genre, I can just write my such and such songs and play my such and such shows, and that'll be fine. You know, it's weird, but again, it's just perspective, man. As I said, people have different ideas of what's acceptable and what's ethical and, you know, not ethical in music, and it's obviously it's very subjective.
As a DIY band, which I'm going to say, you've paid for PR campaigns before. Where does that sit in your kind of outlook as a musician? Is that a necessary evil? Is it something that has to be done?
I don't know. Again, I feel that from past experience, I think the landscape's changed a lot in the last 10 years, certainly, probably 5 years. I don't think it's necessary, and I think certainly some people would argue it's not necessary and you're paying these people for nothing, and you can do it all yourself, and that's probably true, like, to a certain extent. I think that there is so far, but you'll get X big booking agent, and X big booking agent are booking a tour for Y, your favourite band. If you are an unsigned band with no kind of management or PR or anything representing you, you'll get ignored 9 times out of 10. It's an unsolicited email or whatever, right? And that's across more or less any genre. I'm sure people in the kind of punk and hardcore scenes would think, nah, that's not punk. It happens in every genre. You'll be ignored. So if you're in tight with a local promoter and, it's a friend or someone you've done shows for, and they pick you up to support this band at the local venue, then wicked. And that's happened to bands I play in. We've got to support some cool people. Couldn't get on the tour, obviously. We've got that local show, but I think my first experience of working with a PR company was when Atlas Empire released their second EP, Somnus, that you're familiar with, and we worked with Badge of Friendship PR just for a few months, just leading up to the release and month of the release. And the thing is, the market, the music market in every genre is so oversaturated, and unfortunately the way the market's changed, and I guess PR companies have become more of a necessity because one band did it, so the next band did it, and it's that chicken and egg thing. Like, maybe at some point they weren't as necessary as they are now, but then again, you rewind 15-20 years, you had labels, major labels and indies and subsidiaries of major labels signing bands based on, we've heard good things about this band, we're coming to the next showcase in London, and then an A&R guy comes up and talks to that band. That must still happen, right? But in what kind of minute percentage? Like, how often do you think that happens now in the UK? Like, an A&R guy comes up to a band at a gig and goes, I caught your set, I thought you guys were excellent, like, email me stuff at this thing, blah blah blah. Like, that's used to be a thing, I think, but it's not a thing anymore, and it's certainly never really happened to any band I've played in, or any bands that we know in our kind of scenes. So I think for me, if I'm wanting to do a band and I'm wanting to reach people, and reach is the key thing. Like, social media is great, and it is, and it works, and it's quite a fickle thing as well these days. You need to know how to maximise your outreach and stuff. But I think the difference between just putting out a CD, whether it's an EP or a vinyl or an album or whatever, the difference between just putting that out and telling your friends about it and sharing it online and then touring it versus it being put on Punktastic or Rock Sound's website or Clash Music or something, that's well beyond what most small unsigned DIY bands can reach. So yeah, I think I've seen crazy results come from doing that with Atlas Empire, and more recently with Dialects. Like, we went to Canada this year. That wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had PR, because we wouldn't have had a song of ours played on a Canadian internet radio station for kind of post-rock and instrumental math rock stuff. More than likely that wouldn't have reached them, and then a guy who was one of the reps for CMW in Toronto heard that, and that was the link. So yeah, I don't think that band would have done half the stuff we've done without a good PR guy, definitely not.
I spoke to a guy recently called Ray Harkins, who runs an awesome podcast called 100 Words or Less.
Right, okay.
And he has worked in the music. He's from California, lives in LA, lives in Orange County. Yeah. And he's worked for some record labels out there. And one of the interesting conversations we had is that the whole culture of bands paying for PR is actually a distinctly British thing. It doesn't really happen in America or Europe, which I thought was really interesting as well. And he's like, that's the way the game's played over there, and he's like, I don't really get it. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of bands that also throw money away in it, and don't tour, and it's like, well, yeah, you need to be PRing something, not just PRing your band. So when Atlas first did it for Somnus, we were PRing Somnus, the EP. We had a couple of videos to support that, one prior to the release, and then one that sort of came out alongside the EP. We didn't stay on with that PR company because it's a good thing that we didn't, retrospectively, even though I kind of wanted us to keep some kind of relationship, because we wouldn't have done a great deal
touring. After the tour with Axis of, our next tour, that was November 13. Our next tour wasn't till June, so there's 6-7 months of not a lot of touring. But with Dialects, we've kept a relationship with our PR guy Sai, who's at I Like Press, and we've worked with them since before we put out the first EP. Like, we were working with I Like Press before we released our first piece of music. We did a video for a song called Unknown Orbit, and we started that, and Sai has kept us on. Like, we've kept in a relationship, as it were, with each other since then. But yeah, I mean, if it is a distinctly British thing, that's fair enough. I definitely think there's certain things about the music industry in general that are distinctly British, and things are different. Even just the way certain promoters and certain things work with booking agents overseas, and there's a different attitude to touring musicians, I think, outside the UK. But yeah, I'm an advocate of it, and I know there's a lot of other bands from Glasgow, like friends bands and bands in my scene, that probably wouldn't have got as much recognition had they not had, and the thing is, I mean, it's all relative, but you're not talking, certainly for the PR companies I've worked with, I know some of the big guys are, $1,500 to $2,000 a month and stuff, like, which is a hell of a lot of money for anybody, I think, but you're not talking fortunes and fortunes of money. You're talking about what most people would spend on a night out that wasn't a total wild night out. I'm a cheap date, been a non-drinker, but it's not astronomical amounts of money. And for me to be getting an email to say, oh, you guys have got a feature on X website, or the video's getting embedded in this website, or this, that and the next thing, and then you're seeing the result in that of people PMing you through Facebook, or your YouTube views going up, or just people coming up to you at a gig and saying, oh yeah, I heard about your band, because like I check everything out on whatever Already Heard, or whatever website, and that's how I heard your band. Again, if you didn't have that platform and that outlet, would you've just gone unnoticed? So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have heard of a lot of the bands I'm into if it wasn't for reading Rock Sound, reading Kerrang, reading Metal Hammer, Big Cheese, being on websites. I'm sure everyone of our kind of age group's the same. Like, you discovered a lot of bands through the internet. So, it's the same thing. Just, I'm, me and the guys in my bands, we're paying for it out of our own pocket rather than a label paying for it. But it's putting money into something you love to help it go further. So I don't think that's in any way unethical, or nah, not at all.
You've touched a little bit on Dialects, and we haven't really spoken about it.
Yeah.
The process of getting that band out there and doing stuff seems to have been much quicker than Atlas Empire. Why? Yeah,
I guess. I mean, it's a weird one, man. Like, I suppose partially the fact that I think all the guys in Dialects, like, we were a band that didn't really not grow up in public, but Atlas had quite a bit of change early on. So when we started, we had a fill-in drummer, and then we got a permanent drummer, and then we became a 5-piece doing a third guitar player. So there was a bit of change, I guess, with Dialects. The initial lineup of myself, Connor, Ali, who's our bass player, and Johnny, our former drummer, who was also in Atlas Empire until last year, we were all just mates. I'd known Ali for years through the bands he played in. He used to run Arc Studios, and he works in Merchant City Music, so I'd always known Ali. Johnny and I played in Atlas for a couple of years, and Connor was a guy we'd met when his old band Without Airplanes had played with Atlas a couple of shows. So it was just, I don't know, it seemed to move pretty quickly, like, because Connor had a bunch of ideas for songs, and I think especially because Johnny and I were really used to playing together in a band, I think everything just came together really, really quickly. And then, yeah, just a stroke of good luck, I guess, man. I think, obviously, as I touched on with the kind of PR thing, like there being a sort of push behind everything, that was something that we all kind of wanted from day one. Like, we would get a song, we wouldn't record or put out like a demo, we'd wait and do a proper kind of first EP, good quality recording, and then we would want to do a video, and then the first thing the band did to be a video along with a song and push it properly. And I guess maybe we just hit a wave of popularity in the UK for kind of instrumental proggy music. Like, for the first video we put out, the first thing we put out was like shared and retweeted and stuff by Arctangent, which is like the big festival in the UK for that kind of music. So yeah, a stroke of good luck as well. We also were working our former manager, a guy called Kyle, who runs Cut Loose, Glasgow kind of promotions company. I think we did a show for him pretty early on with a band from Japan called Light, a really, really wicked math rock bands from Japan. So I think he just saw us and liked what he saw, so we kind of had a guy that was quite well established in the UK scene. He knew a lot of the other promoters and other organisers. So I think that helped move things along as well. But yeah, I mean, with Dialects, I guess that music is a bit more niche than the Atlas stuff, but it's very popular at the moment, and it's been growing in popularity over the last few years. Everywhere, I think, bands like Russian Circles are playing huge venues now. Obviously, you've got your Mogwais and your Explosions in the Skies, your Monos that always play big places, but even the kind of heavier, weirder bands playing bigger and bigger venues. So yeah, I don't know, like a combination of a lot of factors, I guess, with Dialects. Just right place at kind of the right time, doing kind of the right music. But
experienced heads as
well, there's that as well, man. Like, obviously, like, not to discredit any of the guys in Atlas, like they've all been playing in bands for a long, long time as well, but I definitely feel that there was certainly people in, if we talk about the 5-piece lineup of Atlas Empire, there was certainly people who weren't on the same page as me, definitely, in terms of kind of pushing forward, driving forward. Like, now former members who could be great musicians, great dudes, whatever, but they just, as I said, they were more the kind of, we just want to have a jam with our mates type guys, which is fine. That's his own thing. It's just not it's not the wavelength I'm on type thing. Whereas I think with Dialects, everybody was totally like, let's fucking do this, let's make stuff happen. And we did our first tour like just about a year after the band formed. Was it? No, hold on. Year and a bit. Our first tour was like May 15, and that was with Mutiny and the Bounty, bands from Luxembourg, who are like one of our like influences, and like, a band that we've totally drawn tons of inspiration from. And to do the first tour with them, and those guys are friends now, was amazing. And then we've played with some awesome bands from all over the world in our short time. And obviously now we've been out the UK, and even something like our first shows out with Britain not being Europe, because it's the most commonly followed path for bands. Is you tour the UK for X amount of years, you go to Europe, you do that, you maybe go somewhere a bit further afield. But for our first non-UK show to be in Toronto was pretty crazy. So I don't really know, man, like why it came together, why things moved quicker. A combination of, I think, a unified drive from all four members, certainly all four members at that point, I should say, and just good fortune as well.
Are you happy with where you are for both bands now?
I mean, yeah, I feel it's weird. I feel that Dialects have done a lot in a short space of time, and because of that, I think it feels that if we are not as busy as I'm used to us being, it kind of feels like we're not doing stuff even though we are. So for example, we recorded our album in March, yeah, and it was mixed and mastered and stuff and finished, and it's been finished since, say, May, June. We don't have a release date for it yet. We don't know when it's going to be available, we don't know when it's going to be out, and that's obviously quite frustrating, because you want to put music out and you don't want to look like you're complacent, and you don't want to feel like we've done one physical release, which was May last year, so a year and a bit ago, and then we did a single that was digital. It doesn't feel like we're putting out much stuff, but I think we know, like, behind the scenes there's stuff being spoken about, and we've got a management company working with us and stuff. So yeah, I don't think we could have done much more than we have, to be honest. It just maybe feels at the moment there's not as much going on as I would like there to be. But saying that, we're playing a festival on Saturday, we're Damnation Festival down in Leeds, so we're going to be the only not super heavy band at Damnation, which will be interesting. Looking forward to that. With Atlas, I feel I feel we could have done more in terms of touring, definitely, and I feel that I would like to have had the album done. It's a strange one, it's a mixed bag, sorry, because we're at a point now where there's a couple of songs that will be in our first full-length album that have existed since before the band. So the closing song on the first Atlas Empire full-length album was actually written when I was still in the Ocean Fracture, so this is like 6-7 years ago, and it was just a song I wrote and I knew it wouldn't fit that band, so it wasn't, it didn't have a home at the time. And then there's some stuff that we're doing now with Ben, our new drummer, who joined the band like properly kind of November, December last year, and he's been given the free rein to kind of write with us. So I guess the album, when it happens, will be worth the wait. I genuinely believe that. But I think for me and for the other guys in the band, and maybe even some guys who aren't in the band anymore, who, it felt like it's taken a long time. I guess, a lot of bands are a band for 6-7 years before they do an album. But as you said, behind the curtain, when you're in the band and you're like, been a band for 5 years and we've not done our album yet. But there's been a lot of contributing factors to that. So many contributing factors to that. And I guess I don't want to put out an album, whatever, put it out in whatever context that is, whether it goes through a label, whether it's a self-release, whether it's on Bandcamp, whether it's a double vinyl, whatever, whatever that ends up shape that takes or form that takes. I don't want it to be something I feel that any of us compromised on. It's weird, I'm very excited about it being finished, but I also really want it to be finished at the same time. It's strange, man. It's a mix of emotions with that record.
It seems like lack of compromise is a good way of describing how it's been in your musical life so far.
Well, yeah, there's been times where I definitely have. There's been times, whether it's been a conflict with another member of a band, or I guess there was a while in Jamie and I's project before Atlas, the pop thing, where we kind of compromised, but it got to the point where we both knew we didn't really want to. There was certain things where we were just like, no, this isn't what it's about. I just feel that, again, not leaving a legacy as grand as that sounds, but when I'm a really old dude, not just a moderately old dude, I want to be able to look and listen back on what I did, and whether that's an old tour poster or a little tour laminate with the dates on it or whatever, or if I'm able to listen to old music by the time that happens, whatever kind of media's in. But I want to be able to listen to stuff and be proud of it, and we've probably all done recordings in the past where whether it's sort of demo stuff or even in some cases actual releases with bands where you listen back and you're like, there was a bit there, you should have done that bit again, or there's a bit that kind of bugs you, and I don't want to listen back to 10 years from now or 15 years from now, whatever, if I'm not doing a band anymore, or certainly not doing Atlas Empire anymore, or whatever, that I listen back to the album and perfect example, we could have finished the album and put it out with drums on it by a guy who wasn't the drummer anymore, guitar by a guitarist who wasn't in the band anymore, and now bass and vocals by a bass player and vocalist that isn't in the band anymore. And there's recordings that exist that are public domain where every lineup has played on, so that there's a document, there's a record that was a thing, that guy was in the band and they contributed and they brought to the table what they brought. But it would feel really weird to be in 2017 touring an album or bringing an album out, because we're planning, it's still very early works, but Atlas are planning to go to the States next year and do a tour. More on that to be confirmed, and known as it might end up being 2020, but it's meant to be next year. And I want to be with a group of people, and they're on the record. I want them to be in the album. I don't want to be there with a bass player who's not the bass player on the album, and I don't want to be there with a drummer who's playing some other drummer's drum parts, and I don't want to put a song out that we maybe thought we could write a better outro for that song now, or maybe I've had an idea for a different riff, that would go really well on that song, so obviously a song needs to be finished at some point. And don't get me wrong, we still play stuff off all our releases as they were, because those songs were right at the time and they were complete for that, you know, that permutation of the band. But yeah, I feel that when the album actually is finished and when it's ready to come out and be done, I want it to be the best, you know, incarnation of that album it can be, with the people who are in the band at the time and are actually involved in creating it.
I think it's a really good note to end on. Is there anything else you want to say, or anything you want to ask me before we finish?
I'm pretty stoked I found out we're almost neighbours. That's cool. What else do I want to ask?
Undisclosed location.
Undisclosed location. Yeah, absolutely. Keep that confidential. No, man. Just thanks for doing this, and thank you for your part in the story as well. What you were responsible or guilty for, depending on your perception.
I'm there somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you very much.
Well, Steve, it's been really great. Thank you.
Cheers, man.
That interview was a long time coming. I've known Stephen for a while. I even put out one of Atlas Empire's records on my old record label. So it was good to finally sit down and get a chat with him. A few people have asked me when my interview with Andrew Falkis, or Falco as he's known, from Future of the Left will be going online. Well, I thought I should explain myself a little bit. It turned out that when I was recording over Skype that my side of the conversation didn't record properly. So I need to go back and re-record all of my own parts. And the interview is over an hour and 10 minutes long, so it's going to take a little while to do that. But rest assured, we will get there. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If this is the first time you're listening to this podcast, please subscribe to it. You can do that by hitting the subscribe button in whatever podcasting app that you're using. Or it could be a like button or a favourite button. Either or, doesn't matter. Hit that button so you can get more updates from this podcast and always be made aware when new episodes become available. Until next time, bye bye.